Hello and welcome to the channel. I just wanted to put together a quick video about this new charger, the ISDT K2 charger. It's an AC and DC powered charger with some quite impressive specs. I'll be focusing on using it for car battery packs because that's the kind of RC that I do. And I'll start off with a quick unboxing, show you what you get in the box, and I'll follow up by trying it out with a few different packs, seeing what it can do. So we'll start off with the unboxing. This is how it arrives, straight from China. Quite a nice box. Not much to say really, it's slightly matte finish, but it'll be useful for storing the charger in the future. Thing to point out here, it's 200 watts AC power, which is a generous amount of power from the built-in power supply. If you were to put it straight to DC, it's actually 500 watts in each of the two channels, which is pretty impressive and will do most that you need in terms of charging. Get that lid off. This is how it's presented. You've got this very square-shaped instruction manual here, and what is I assume is Chinese. And then there's a couple of pages in English there for you to understand how it works. We've also got a few stickers here if you are so inclined to stick them on your vehicles or in the pits somewhere. A little screen protector here, which seems to be made out of plastic. Not sure if I'll make any use of that. And then of course the charger itself. I'll just tip that out. It's about 6 inches square and probably 2 or 3 inches high. It's got a little sticky protection cover here just for transit. I'll be taking that off before I actually use it properly. And then in the bottom of the box, I'll just move it to the side. In the bottom of the box we have the plug. In my case, a nice UK plug in the box, so nothing to worry about. Apart from, before I power it up, one thing to be aware of with this that they're quite proud of at ISDT is that they've added this right-angled power connection. And the reason for that is that in the back corner here, when you're actually plugging in the power into the charger, because the right angle plug means that if you've plugged it in to the AC here, there's no way that you can mistakenly plug in a DC power supply at the same time, and vice versa as well. If you were to plug in a 12 volt DC or even higher, because it can tolerate up to 24 volts I believe on the input, you also won't mistakenly plug in the mains. So that's what we have in the box. Fairly straightforward, more or less what you would expect. And I will now hook this up to the mains and we will try some charging. Okay, so now that it's plugged into the mains, let's take a look at the menus and the options that are available to you. As you can see, when it's first powered up, you see the screen split in two. Left-hand side is for channel 1, right-hand side is for channel 2. We've also got a few buttons here, so there's an up and down button for each channel. This is a settings button for each channel. And also if you push both of the channels settings buttons at the same time, then you go to an advanced settings menu. Looking at the front of the charger, we've got a few connections here. As you'd expect, it uses XT60 built in for power to the actual battery. There's also a built-in balance port here for the standard JST balance connector. And finally, there is a USB port here as well, which can be used to charge your mobile phone if you want it to. So we'll start off by going to the advanced menu, and I'll just push and hold here. And we've got a few options here, a dual task which charges both batteries, both channels in exactly the same settings, a parallel task which allows you to harness the power of both channels into a single battery, so that might be useful for very large battery packs that you want to charge at a high rate. What's very interesting to me is that channel 1 can be used as a DC power supply, so I plan to use this for my tyre warmers when I'm at the track. Instead of having a separate thing coming off the power supply for them, I'll just power them out of the channel 1 with about a 12 volt output. Also it'd be useful if you are racing and using brushed motors and you want to break in the motor, setting at around about 5 volts and just running the motor in just to get the brushes bedded in. That'll be a very useful thing to do as well. And I'll just go back to the advanced menu and go down to the system settings here. And that is a number of different settings that you can do with the charger, backlight, volume, so whether the USB charge function is on or off and so on. I won't change any of those, I'm quite happy with those. I'm sure that reading the manual in more detail would help you understand if you wanted to use those. But what I want to do is get stuck into the charging. So I've got a fairly standard shorty lipo here, 6000 milliamp hours 2S, which is wired up with the usual wiring harness you get in the pack with an Intellect lipo. And I've got an adapter here just to change the old Teens plug to an XT60. So I'll get the XT60 plugged into channel 1. There we go, and the JST balance adapter. It's going to go in upside down here with the negative on the left hand side. So I'll just line that up and plug that in. Straight away you can see that the display has picked up the battery and it's showing us the voltage of the battery as a whole, that it's 2S, and those are the individual voltages of the two cells inside it, so it's not very far off balance at all. I'll start off by giving this a charge, see what options are available to us. So a longer press on that. It's set up for charge already. As you'd expect, there's also a discharge and a storage mode. The destroy mode is designed to remove all the charge from a battery before you plan to dispose of it, so that should be quite useful. LiPo is the expected chemistry obviously for this battery, but also a number of other options like Li-HV, Li-ion and nickel cells there, so it should cover pretty much anything you'd be interested in charging, but we'll stick to LiPo. It has a voltage setting here, so 4.2 is what we want to be at. 2S, as we know, it's a 2S pack, and we're going to charge this at 6 amps because it's a 6000 milliamp hour pack as well. I'm quite happy with that, so we'll just get started on a charge and see what happens. So you saw the charger just ramped up gently to that 6 amp charge rate. In very small characters here, there's a 78%, 79%, which is what the charger thinks is the amount of energy in the battery currently. It's also given you some outputs here about the voltage currently and the wattage going into it. So as you can see, we're well within the 200 watt limit that this charger can do. That means that if I was to be charging another similar pack in channel 2, I could effectively be charging at around about 12 amps for both packs and still be within the AC limits of this, and that's a really, really useful amount of power for charging, especially in such a small box. 70 milliamp hours gone into the battery so far. There's a temperature rating here. I'm not sure what that is. I think that might be internal temperature of the charger, and also a voltage readout here for the two cells inside the battery. If I do a quick press here, it actually takes us to some more details. Reading of internal resistance there, so 3.4 and 3.3 milliohms. The individual cell voltages here, 4.03 volts, 4.04 volts. So a couple of extra readouts there that will be useful as you're charging. Just short press there to go back to the normal menu. So I think that's enough of the charge demonstration, so I will just stop this with a longer press and go straight to the stop option. So I'll also show what it can do in terms of discharge. Now this isn't a charger with a very high powered discharge, not like some of the iChargers that allow you to do charging via a resistor bank at very high rates, but it does have a useful improvement over a lot of the more budget chargers. So I'll just go back up to the task. I shall change it to a discharge task. Again, lithium polymer. Condition being the cutoff voltage, so 3.3 is quite a safe voltage for cutoff when you're discharging a LiPo. I'll leave it at that. Again, it's a 2S one. The current here is set to 1.5 amps, and that is actually the highest value you can discharge at, which may not seem like a lot, but compared to some chargers that struggle to do about half an amp, it's going to make the discharge rate a lot quicker, and it's particularly for me, it's going to make the storage a lot quicker when I've finished using batteries, and I know that I'm not going to use them for a number of weeks. It's good to put them in storage mode. This should make that whole process a lot quicker. And again, same kind of readout, 1.5 amps with a little negative sign there. 75% of the battery's energy is left in it, 12 watts being taken out of it, 8 milliamps taken out of it. There's a good temperature reading again there, and also the readout of the voltage. And we can toggle through the same menus. It gives me an idea of the current input there. 26.7 volts, 3.99 volts per cell. And we could leave that discharging, but what I will do, in fact, to finish off, is just stop that. What I really want to be doing now with this one is putting it into storage mode. So again, we'll just set the task to storage. 3.8 volts, again, sensible storage mode voltage for a lipo. The current there is the charge amperage, 6 amps. So we'll just see what it starts off by doing there. As you'd expect, it's gone straight to the discharge because this one is over 3.8 volts per cell, up at the maximum 1.5 amps. I'll just leave that to its own devices, and we should have a nicely stored battery ready for charging next time it's going to get used. So that's the end of my overview of this charger. If you've got any questions, please do ask them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer. Otherwise, thank you for watching.